She stood there quietly, unnoticed in a crowded room filled with chatter and polished uniforms. Day after day, she blended into the background like a shadow, overlooked, ignored, and underestimated by everyone around her. No one seemed to pay attention to the small details of her story or the strength she quietly carried. It was as if she was invisible, just another face lost in the noise of a world too busy to see her. But what if I told you that everything changed in a moment that nobody saw coming? That one simple gesture from a high-ranking officer turned her world upside down and made everyone stop and take notice. This is the story of how a 4-star general, one of the most respected figures in the military, walked into her life and saluted her, a gesture that spoke volumes without a single word being said. You might be wondering, who is she? Why was she ignored for so long? And what made that salute so powerful? It's a story about courage, respect, and the invisible battles many face every day, battles that go unnoticed but shape who we are. The kind of story that challenges us to rethink how we value people, especially those who seem invisible at first glance. This moment of recognition wasn't just about military protocol. It was a turning point, a moment that shattered the silence surrounding her and revealed a deeper truth about respect and honor. As we dive deeper, you'll meet the people who didn't see her worth, and the one person who saw something different, something real. But the question remains, what did that salute mean for her future? Did it change how others treated her, or was it just a fleeting moment in an otherwise lonely journey? Stay with me, because the answer isn't as simple as you might think. This is more than just a story about recognition. It's about breaking through invisibility and finding a voice when the world refuses to listen. And right now, as the 4-star general's eyes meet hers and that salute is given, everything is about to change, but how and why, you'll soon find out. For years, she had worked quietly behind the scenes, never seeking attention, never asking for praise. Her job wasn't glamorous. It was filled with long hours, small tasks, and moments that often went unnoticed by everyone except herself. Maybe that's why so many overlooked her. In a world that often celebrates loud voices and big achievements, her steady presence faded into the background. She was the kind of person who believed in doing her duty without expecting recognition, carrying a weight that few understood. Her colleagues barely glanced her way. Some barely even knew her name. She had learned to accept that silence, that invisibility, as part of her reality. But deep down, she knew her story was different from what others assumed. She had faced challenges, doubts, and fears that she rarely shared. Behind those quiet eyes was a strength forged through struggle, strength that no one had seen or acknowledged. Then came that day. The 4-star general entered the room. He was a man known for discipline, respect, and a sharp eye for detail. His reputation was that of a leader who noticed what others missed. When he paused, looked directly at her, and offered that salute, the air seemed to shift. The room fell quieter, the murmurs dimmed. Something unspoken passed between them, something that shook the very foundation of her world. But why did he do it? Was it a simple act of military respect, or was there more behind his gesture? Did he see something in her that the rest of the world ignored? And what would happen next, now that she was no longer invisible? The questions hung in the air, heavy with possibility. The truth is, this moment was just the beginning. What unfolded afterward would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself and those around her. The journey ahead promised to uncover secrets, reveal hidden strength, and question the limits of respect and recognition. But for now, the silence remains thick with unanswered questions and the promise of change. She had always been the kind of person who stayed out of the spotlight, quietly doing her part without expecting much in return. The kind of person who believed that hard work alone was enough, even if no one noticed. But in a place filled with uniforms and ranks, where respect was often shown through status and titles, Her presence was barely acknowledged. She was the background, the unnoticed face in a sea of faces who carried burdens no one asked about. Her days blurred together, long hours, small tasks, and fleeting moments that never felt significant. Sometimes she wondered if anyone truly saw her. The silence around her wasn't just about being ignored. It was a wall built by assumptions. People made quick judgments, decided she didn't belong, or that she wasn't important. She kept her head down, trying to prove her worth in ways that mattered to her, even if no one else understood. Then the 4-star general walked in. The kind of man whose footsteps echoed with authority, whose presence commanded attention in any room. He was a symbol of leadership, discipline, and respect, qualities that seemed so distant from the quiet woman in the corner. But as he looked at her and saluted, everything shifted. That single gesture broke through the invisible barrier that had kept her isolated. It raised questions that no one had dared to ask. Who was she, really? What had she endured to stand there today? And why had it taken someone so powerful to finally recognize her? The room held its breath. Whispers started to spread, but no one knew the full story. Beneath the surface, there was a deeper conflict, one that had been simmering for years. Secrets, doubts, and unspoken struggles that neither the general nor she had yet revealed. This salute was just the opening chapter of a story filled with unexpected twists, hard truths, and a search for respect that went far beyond ranks and medals. The tension was real, and the answers were still out of reach. What came next would change everything, but for now, the mystery remained. From that moment on, everything seemed to shift beneath her feet. The room that once felt cold and distant suddenly buzzed with whispers and curious glances. The 4-star general's salute wasn't just a gesture. It was a challenge to the invisible walls she had lived behind for so long. But with attention came pressure, and she could feel the weight of countless eyes. Some filled with doubt, others with suspicion. Questions loomed larger now than ever before. Why had it taken such a high-ranking officer to notice her? Was this recognition genuine, or part of a bigger game she didn't yet understand? She tried to steady herself, but inside, the old insecurities stirred. Years of being overlooked don't disappear overnight. Every stare reminded her of the times she was dismissed, the moments when her efforts were ignored or taken for granted. And yet, the general's salute had opened a door, one that brought both hope and uncertainty. What was expected of her now? Could she live up to whatever standard this sudden spotlight demanded? Around her, the atmosphere thickened. Colleagues who once ignored her began to talk in hushed tones. Some offered half-hearted congratulations, while others watched with quiet judgment. It was clear that this moment was more than symbolic. It threatened the status quo. Unspoken alliances shifted, old rivalries resurfaced, and the tension became almost unbearable. She found herself caught in a silent battle, not just to prove her worth to others, but to convince herself that she belonged. The general's salute was a sign of respect, yes, but also a call to action. It was as if an invisible thread had pulled her into a new world, one where every decision mattered and every step was under scrutiny. As the days passed, the pressure mounted. Secrets from the past began to surface, and the line between friend and foe blurred. The question was no longer if she would be noticed, but what she would do with that attention. The moment of truth was drawing near, and the answer could change everything. The air was thick with anticipation, but the ending was still uncertain, hanging just out of reach. Just as she began to find a fragile sense of confidence, something unexpected happened, something that sent shockwaves through everything she thought she understood. The general's salute, which had seemed like a quiet acknowledgement of her worth, suddenly took on a new meaning. Whispers started spreading about a hidden connection between them, something no one had suspected. Rumors suggested that the general wasn't just recognizing her out of respect, but because of a secret tied deeply to her. Past one that could change the way everyone saw her. Completely, this revelation didn't bring relief. It only raised the stakes higher. The people who had ignored her before now eyed her with suspicion, wondering if she had been playing a part all along. Trust began to fracture, and alliances shifted in unpredictable ways. Suddenly, the quiet woman who had been overlooked was at the center of a storm she hadn't asked for. The general's salute wasn't just an act of respect. It was a signal that something far bigger was unfolding behind closed doors. Her world felt like it was closing in. Questions she'd never dared to ask herself came rushing back. What was this secret? How much did the general really know? And what was she willing to risk to keep her story hidden or to finally bring it into the light? The tension around her grew thicker, like a tightrope stretched over a dangerous drop. One wrong move could shatter everything she had been holding on to. Every glance, every word, now carried weight. The line between ally and enemy blurred even more. And the silence she once found comfort in was replaced by a deafening noise of doubt and expectation. The invisible walls were crumbling, but what waited on the other side was still unknown. The climax was fast approaching, and with it came the promise of answers and consequences that no one could have predicted. The day everything came to a head arrived faster than she expected. The room was charged with tension, the weight of unanswered questions hanging in the air like a storm about to break. She stood tall, no longer invisible, but fully exposed. The whispers, the doubts, the hidden glances, it all came crashing down as the general stepped forward. His eyes steady and unwavering in front of everyone. He revealed the truth. The salute wasn't just a formality. It was a recognition of something extraordinary she had done in the past, something that had been kept secret for years. She had saved countless lives during a critical mission, an act of courage that had been buried under layers of bureaucracy and silence. The general had discovered the truth and was now honoring her bravery, breaking through the walls that had kept her hidden for so long. Suddenly, the respect she had longed for was no longer a distant dream. It was real and undeniable. The room erupted with a mix of shock, admiration, and regret from those who had overlooked her. She finally received the recognition she deserved. Not because of rank or status, but because of who she truly was. Hero in her own right. Yet, just as relief began to settle, a new twist caught everyone off guard. The general stepped back and quietly dropped a bombshell. The mission she was credited for wasn't the whole story. There was more, something that hadn't been revealed, something that could change everything again. She looked around, realizing that the journey wasn't over. The spotlight had found her, but the shadows still held secrets. What those secrets were and how they would shape her future remained a mystery for now. The salute that started it all was just the beginning, and the real story was only just unfolding. The room fell into a heavy silence after the general's unexpected revelation. Everyone's eyes were fixed on her, waiting for a response. She took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and uncertainty wash over her. The recognition she'd waited for all those years had finally arrived. But now she understood that her story was more complicated than anyone had imagined. The hidden parts of her past were still there, waiting to be uncovered in time. As the crowd slowly began to shift, she realized something important. The journey wasn't just about gaining respect from others. It was about learning to respect herself, to embrace every part of her story, even the parts that were hard to face. The general's salute had opened a door, but it was up to her to decide what came next. Would she let the past define her, or would she use it to build a stronger future? In the days that followed, she found a new sense of purpose. People who had once ignored her now sought her out. Not just because of the general's endorsement, but because they saw the courage and resilience she carried quietly all along. The whispers turned into conversations, and the silence became a space for connection and understanding. Her story became a reminder to everyone watching that sometimes the people who seem invisible hold the greatest strength. That respect isn't given by rank or title, but earned through quiet bravery and unwavering commitment. And most importantly, that every person deserves to be seen and heard. No matter how small their role might seem, the salute from the 4-star general was more than a moment of recognition. It was a catalyst for change, both for her and those around her. And while some questions remained, one thing was clear. Her story was just beginning, and this time, she would never be ignored again. If you enjoyed this story and want more intense thrillers and suspenseful adventures, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with friends who love a good mystery. Your support helps me bring you more stories just like this one.